But will the Coronet start? Yes! Hey, the driveline for the Coronet is here. That's exciting. SilverSport actually contracts these out to a company called Dynotech. It's a very nice piece. Let's see if I got the measurements right. It's absolutely perfect. Nice. Now, let's see if I can find the hardware. All right, this isn't SilverSport's fault. They sent me the right part number, but it's got the wrong thing in the bag, so I can't hook the shifter up, which sucks. So for now, I fixed it with zip ties. Let's see if this thing moves. Oh, I went and reinstalled the driver's seat too. Now the transmission electronics still aren't hooked up. It'll move in lit mode, I think. Check it out. Drove outside. You know, I had to reach through here to do throttle stuff, but that's fine. This thing's cool. Oh yeah. All right. Now let's see if it'll drive again onto the lift. And then I can button up the transmission install and the exhaust and probably a bunch of other stuff. Got the neutral safety switch wired to the SilverSport Transmissions A41 GM, whatever the heck it is. But does it work? Yes! Yes, it does. Don't mind me, just drilling more holes in perfectly good, freshly painted cars. Well, here's the transmission fill set up on the Coronet. That's neat. More on all of this science in a minute here. Is this guy lost? Well, as you saw in that glorious and triumphant footage, this car actually kind of drove around the driveway, and the transmission did shift at least once. So that's great. My part of this operation is actually coming to a close, and I'm going to switch gears and start working on a Hemi swap soon, which is cool. But before I do that, I thought I'd give you a little update on what I had to do to make this all work. The Holley Sniper supports CAN bus. The PCS transmission control module supports CAN bus and has a CAN bus connector. Aha, I thought. I'll simply connect the two and everything will work great. It'll get all the readings it needs from the engine right there. Well, not all CAN bus connections are made equal, and these two modules do not speak the same language. As I said in an earlier video on this car, because we have EFI, it just makes perfect sense to try and get the readings from that computer that the transmission needs. I mean, why wouldn't you? The very nice and helpful gentleman I talked to with PCS agreed, but he informed me that Holley CAN bus systems are weird, and they have no idea how they work or what protocol they use. He advised that I just hardwire everything and get it over with. Aha, I thought. The Holley Sniper already has a throttle sensor. can't I just use the throttle sensor reading from that and, tee a wire off to send to the transmission module? Well, sure I could, but the very nice and helpful gentleman with PCS informed me that the Holley system really doesn't like this. I've read the same on various forum posts. The long and the short of it is, it's probably a bad idea. So that's what I did. I used this perfectly good TPS kit that's been sitting here in a bag the whole time, and I ran it over here next to the normal TPS because it made sense and I thought it would be funny. There's an extra cable now that's sitting under these crazy levels of wires and hoses and various things. But it works. It works great. I did have to change the cable here to get the ratio right and mounted that bracket there. I had to do some digging because that cable uses one of those slide-on connectors. Not a ball stud, but the flat one. And they didn't include that with the kit for some reason. It's not a normal Mopar part, but I was able to dig around here at the shop and I did find one, finally. I'm pretty happy with how this arrangement turned out. It looks really nice. Now I just need to come up with a bracket to mount that sensor there and it'll be good to go. It'll probably look something like this, I guess. I actually have a bunch more brackets and heat shields and things to make too. More on that later. Now, this random single wire connection floating in space. In talking to the very knowledgeable and helpful gentleman at PCS, we decided that connecting this orange trigger wire for engine RPM that the transmission needs to coil negative should work just fine, because that should be a regular square wave coming from this little control module deal, right? Not so much. The RPM reading there was all over the place. It was crazy. It would say 800, then 1500, then 13,000, and then back to 800. So that's not going to work. This is the Sniper's tachometer output wire. It works perfect. Unfortunately, I also need that wire to power a tachometer, and I had kind of routed it over here to put through the firewall, so I need to address that. There are several wiring projects here that sort of need finalized. We're not going to worry about that for now. I'm still waiting on the permanent battery positive cable. Once that comes in, I'll try and get this all ironed out. And that's it. That's all you need to make this thing work properly. Transmission speed, well, that's built into the PCS harness. Tachometer reading, RPM, and throttle position. It's good to go. Obviously I haven't really gotten to test it on the road, but it did shift once, so I'm still calling that a victory. Circling back to this throttle setup, it's occurred to me that that wasn't done either. I actually had to bend that bracket vertical to get the cable to line up with the Holley throttle adapter. That setup looks pretty nice. I also simplified this thing by cutting off the piece that would have mounted the kickdown linkage. It looks pretty good. Note, when I modified the bracket that way, I was not at all planning for this kickdown throttle position cable thingy bracket to be here. It just happened to work out. I don't know how to explain that, but there you go. Oh, do note, this is the original throttle cable, and this is temporary. We'll get to that later. Another thing I had to do before I could actually drive it was adjust some settings in the Sniper. For one thing, the startup idle air valve settings from the factory were really weird. When it was cold, it would fire up fine. When it was warm, I had to hit the throttle. There's actually a map in here, and based on coolant temperature, it holds the idle air open a certain amount. When it was warm, it was almost none, and this engine needed, well, a lot. I mentioned in an earlier video about this car that I did need to verify the base timing. Here's how you do that. You go into Tuning, System, and Static Timing. You set this to whatever number you want, really. I did 15 since, well, that's what the base timing was set to anyway. Did you know these touchscreens are kind of annoying and temperamental? Anyway, you hit set and you start it and it'll lock the timing there. Then you just break out your trusty dial back timing light. Make sure the numbers match. Set your dial back to 15 and the timing mark should read 0. If it does, you're good to go. Now, other than finishing the engine compartment wiring, my main job left on this thing is getting the exhaust sorted out. This car is equipped with 67 GTX exhaust tips, which is cool. They're supposed to have hangers, which look like this. Unfortunately, well, they don't fit correctly, and I need to make some modifications. I also need to put flexible hangers on the exhaust system, again, because we don't want a rattle trap. Obviously, after that, there's a lot that still needs to happen with this car. For one thing, the fenders are held in place with like 2 bolts each. The AC components need to go back on. The hoses need to be cut and crimped. You know, there's quite a bit. It is going to get a front end alignment right here in the house, done by yours truly with that machine over there. But first, I really want all the weight on the front end, and we have to be absolutely sure we're good with the stance. It's pretty cool, but the front end might need to come up just a little bit. Oh yeah, one other really annoying thing I had to do to drive it. Hook up the brake pedal. The pieces of that like clevis assembly up there were just sort of sitting together, and it did something, but not enough. Now that we have a Coronet that starts, moves, stops, and steers, I think the next thing that's going to happen is it's going to go to the upholsterer and the convertible top's going to be replaced. After that, my coworker Trev will be assembling the interior, putting the nice, shiny jewels in here. That's going to be sweet. Oh, here's a fun little problem. It's actually one we've had more than once around here recently. This is a brand new, rebuilt, shiny detailed wiper motor. It works on low and high, but when it's in park position, it blows the internal breaker. That's not good. We think it might be clocked wrong, so when it's parking, it's not actually turning the motor off. Yeah, great. Do that. Where was I? Oh yes, I believe I was over here. Anyway, as I was saying, I guess we're gonna have to get into this brand new wiper motor and figure that out. So that's good. As I've been attaching the transmission and engine components of this electrical system to the factory stuff, I've learned a lot about air conditioning and other optional add-ons. They're kind of funky in these years. See those green and blue wires right there? Those are supposed to be in the firewall connector, so I guess I'm gonna have to take that back out. Did you know that's really, really hard on an AC car? Yeah. Another thing I'll probably be handling on here, building a console wiring harness. We don't have one since this wasn't originally a console car. The console harness attaches to the tachometer stuff, which lives here at the front of the console. It has a connector for the reverse light switch on the floor shifter, and it's also got wiring for the convenience lights in the side of the console. We kind of need that stuff, so we're going to have to cobble something together. Another thing I learned is that AC cars in these years actually use all of these fuse positions. Other cars are missing one of them. I think it's that one, the third one. Anyway, it's labeled for the AC system, so I actually pulled those parts out of an old fuse box and restored those. That's put in now. The AC power feed is connected to it, and I also piggybacked the power window kit off of it. So these work, which is pretty cool. It's truly amazing how much time goes into the detail work on these cars. I mean, just the little stuff you don't even see. The column and the dash are restored and installed, so they're good to go, right? No. There are extra braces that go to the dash, the column hardware underneath. All of that needs to be gone over, detailed, tightened. There's just so much. But hey, at least on the mechanical side of things, we've made some huge progress here. And this thing is getting pretty close to being a car, so I'm gonna call that a victory. There's one more thing I want to cover. Multiple commenters and, members of our group have asked, why the GM transmission? I'll tell you why. Unlike the Mopar Overdrive, the GM transmission fits under the floor. All that had to be done is some hammer work right there. Not only does this kit from SilverSport come with the electronic components, all the stuff to make it work, it comes with a custom-built crossmember and a mount. I mean, everything you need. They even supply you with a drive shaft. You just send them measurements. It's that easy. The Chrysler Big Block died after 1978, give or take. Chrysler never built an overdrive automatic until like the 90s, so there is no automatic overdrive that bolts right to the back of it. You still have to convert one of those to fit behind this Big Block. And then you have to cut the transmission crossmember and the floor. Why? Just why? The GM one fits better. It makes perfect sense. It's more compact. It's probably lighter. I really think it's a good option. Other than my Corolla, I'm pretty close to Mopar or no car guy, but when GM's got the better stuff, why don't we take advantage of that? I mean, that's hot rodding. Use what works the best, and I really think this is going to. But we'll see. Can't wait to road test it. Anyway, that's it on the Coronet for now. Lots of progress made here, but plenty more to go. Luckily, that's future Jamie's problem. Hey, thanks for watching. And remember, there's always money in the banana stand.